The video game industry is no stranger to horror stories of disastrous game development cycles, Final Fantasy 15, and the Doom franchise is no exception. With Doom Dark Ages released, there could not be a better time to go back in the past and explore what went down behind the scenes during the development of Doom 2016, the game that reshaped and restarted the modern face of the series. Doom 3 is a game that is liked by many people, but is universally agreed upon that it's not really what made Doom, well, Doom. It was more of a survival horror with a slow pacing that worked as a standalone project, but not as a true successor of the ripping and tearing and glory-killing series that we knew and loved. For the very reason, even its story is considered an alternate world or non-canon, completely unrelated to the Doom guy that we see in every other game. So after seeing how the fans and critics reacted to the game,
you don't want to be like this. This is disgusting.
id Software eventually decided to go in a different yet familiar direction for Doom 4, instead of continuing with what they had done with Doom 3. The early development of Doom 4 began sometime around 2007 using the id Tech 5 engine, and it was simultaneously being developed with their new IP called Rage. The initial struggle that the company faced was the fact that it was difficult to develop both games simultaneously, especially since the studio had just 19 employees at the time of Doom 3's release. After their partnership with ZeniMax Media, however, it became much easier for them to have two separate teams working on two games. At this time, the game was neither a reboot nor a sequel, but something that furthered the franchise without delving into the canon thus far. The initial concept of Doom 4 was basically a new take on Doom 2 Hell on Earth, as it was supposed to take place during a hellish invasion of Earth, and the protagonist was neither the Doom guy nor the Marine from Doom 3. Instead, it was some average Joe who was roped into joining Earth's resistance, fighting against demonic forces. A few screenshots and some concept videos of the game were revealed over time, leading to mixed reactions. For one big reason, the game felt more like an average Call of Duty or Battlefield instead of Doom. It was to be written by a British science fiction writer called Graham Joyce, and the influence of Call of Duty and other similar first-person shooters was so blatant with Doom 4 that it was jokingly referred to as Call of Doom by everyone, which ended up becoming its genre title over the years, now that it's not what eventually came out. Since Call of Duty controlled the industry trend for shooting games at the time, Doom 4 included things like health regeneration, linear missions, using cover against demons to survive, and even scripted events where your character automatically did cinematic actions in the world around them, one of which included a turret sequence where AI drove the car and you just shot stuff. It's understandable why this direction was being conceived, since this was what sold at the time, but that was also the issue with it. id Software is a company that starts trends, not chases them. For a couple of years, this version kept being developed while the company mainly focused on Rage. But when Rage came out and did not become the success that the company was hoping for, they eventually became more critical and focused on Doom 4 because the studio needed a win, big time. And when they did review Doom 4's development up to the point, they eventually realized that this game was not what the franchise needed. It was dubbed as directionless and out of touch with what made the original games fun. And around 2011, the development was restarted from scratch. Interestingly, Doom Eternal became another version of the reimagining of Doom 2 Hell on Earth, in a way, as it takes place partially on Earth, infested by a demon invasion. But unlike Doom 4, which would have been its own thing, Eternal, as we know by now, is a part of the same canon as the original games rather than the story reboot. After the team decided to restart the development of Doom 4, they were even more clueless than they were before for a bit, and the company was going through a low morale at the time due to Rage not working out so well and Doom 4 essentially being cancelled. There was a lot of internal debate during the studio as to where the project should be taken now, and ZeniMax was pressuring the company to fix their Act 2, according to a couple of sources. This was further complicated by the fact that the staff had left over the last couple of years and some had been fired. Even John Carmack, its iconic co-founder, ended up leaving the company over creative differences and other internal reasons. But one way or another, despite all the hiccups and roadblocks, the game finally came back on track somewhere along the way, and by 2014, Doom had a direction and a face. In 2014, id Software finally defeated the development hell and cancelled allegations by releasing a teaser trailer at E3 2014, as well as another reveal at QuakeCon. They also revealed that the game was no longer called Doom 4 and instead is now simply known as Doom, which will be a reboot of the franchise. No more numbers, no more alternate directions, just good old demon slaying that we know and love. And even though id Software didn't admit at the time, this is the same Doom guy as the original games. The character did appear to be very similar, and the fans speculated it's the same guy for years until the studio finally confirmed those theories with slightly more story-heavy Eternal and the Dark Ages. id Software selected Hugo Martin as the creative director and Marty Stratton to be the game director sometime around 2013, and Thiago Sosa began the development of the id Takes 6 engine. The inspiration and direction this time mainly came from the original two Doom games, both in terms of gameplay itself and art direction. Additionally, the studio decided to undo all the changes they found in Doom 3, such as slower pace and survival horror theme, and they decided not to take any inspiration from the popular first-person shooters, which was a mistake they made with the Doom 4 version of the project. The modernization of the original games in Doom 2016 basically meant keeping the arcadey action, fast-paced movement and combat, and violent nature, and the team dubbed it as push-forward combat, which means that the player is always on the move, from one enemy to another, from one phase to the next, from one set of guts to another. This eventually became the design philosophy for the reboot, to make it simple, to the point, and addictively fun without adding any unnecessary elements such as cinematics or scripted events. One mechanic called Sync Melee from Doom 4 was reimagined in Doom 2016, now called the Glory Kill, which is essentially a fatality that you can use upon weakened enemies. Aggression became massively rewarded, and the original concept of Doom was back once again, where it's established that you are not under threat from the demons. Rather, the demons are under threat from you. The id Takes 6 engine proved to be great for the game, as it helped move the team at high graphics quality and high frame rates at the same time. And unlike Doom 3 and 4, a much lighter focus was put on the story this time, as it became a background tool that mostly just points the player in which direction to go. It was written by Adam Gascoigne, and according to Martin, it was actually one of the last things added to the game. They wanted to make it self-aware and not very dramatic. The teasers of Doom 2016 not being revealed to the players as widely as they should have been was starting to become something that was worrying fans, because showing a project means you are confident in it. If you are keeping it under wraps, especially after nearly a decade of such troubled development, something must be wrong. Even by 2025, it's nearly impossible to find any footage of the trailer that was shown in QuakeCon for the very first time. And then this was followed by the teams releasing a beta of Doom 2016 multiplayer instead of a single-player demo first, which made some fans worry that the team might be focusing on the wrong aspects of development. But surprisingly, even though the project had every right to fail, the opposite happened. After a few focused years of development, the game finally launched in May 2016, and it blew everyone apart. It was Doom at its finest, modernized enough to not feel dated and yet faithful enough to its roots that even the oldest and most hardcore fans were satisfied. It was the breath of fresh air, not only for the Doom franchise, but also the first-person shooter genre in general, since it felt very different to the games like Call of Duty and Halo. Even the soundtrack by Mick Gordon is still considered nothing short of a masterpiece, as it features many great tracks that creatively deliver the perfect music to bash the demon scum and glory kill them into oblivion, into the pavement.
The first thing I did was made the riff a little bit lower. When you play the riff back lower, it feels more aggressive already. But I kind of felt that it needed to be lower still. I got a hold of a 9-string guitar to go even lower. Then what I was able to do was reconstruct E1M1 using the 9-string guitar while still incorporating those 4 original notes.
Featuring both completely new tracks, though those were inspired by the classics featured in Doom 1 and 2, and a funny detail about that is that Mick was instructed to not use guitars or write a metal score, even though the original Doom featured ambient thrash metal. But after 6 to 9 months of just doing other things, Gordon gave up and convinced id to allow him to use guitars and other experimental tools, which eventually led to the final product that we see. This also marked the first time the console releases of the major Doom games were just as good as the PC version. With almost nothing missing or altered due to hardware problems, Doom 3 kinda came close to this, but it had to be confined to just the Xbox at the time of its release, because the PlayStation 2 would have frankly exploded trying to run at the decent frame rate. It would have been glory killed, because even the Xbox itself struggled to run it at times. And as for Doom 2016, even the Nintendo Switch runs it surprisingly well, which can be considered nothing short of an optimization miracle given how gorgeous the game is and the fact that the environments can sometimes feel open too. The game also received post-launch support for a while in the form of snap map updates, multiplayer content, photo mode, an option to hold the weapon at the center of the screen like the old games, improved anti-cheat, and so on. After 8 years of uncertainty, constantly shifting directions, changing staff, reboots, cancellations, and a complete lack of focus, we finally had a Doom game that brought out the same joy in the players as they felt when they booted up the original game on their state-of-the-art computers. Everything went right for this game, and honestly, that's exactly what should have happened when you sink so many years and so much money into the development of a game. And fortunately, this momentum is still maintained beautifully, since Doom Eternal is another great entry, arguably the best in the franchise, that maintained the core aspects of what makes the gameplay so good, and then expanded upon with more additions, monsters, and differences in level design. And with Doom: The Dark Ages, id surprised everyone by taking inspiration from Doom 64 too, and connecting the modern post-reboot series with its timeline, which means that all 3 classic Doom games have now been covered in some way by the new timeline. Where the series goes from here is going to be exciting to see. But let's hope that running out of old games to reimagine does not lead to another half a decade of development hell at id Software. If you're still here at the end of the video, do consider subscribing for similar content. See you in the next one.